Hello, everyone. I see we have a lot of people joining us today. Thank you so much for joining us today. Yeah, it's 7:45, so we're just going to get started. So I hope your day has been going well so far. Welcome to our student panel. My name is Lua, and I'm a recruitment counselor at the University of Toronto. So please feel free to type in the chat where you're joining us from today, maybe what you're interested in studying. I'd be also interested to know what time it is where you're at, because it's like 7:45 a.m. I'm not used to being up this early. Yeah, and just before we get started, oh, look, Brampton, someone from Brampton, it's 7:50 a.m. That's very impressive. Thank you for joining us. Just before we get started, I do have some housekeeping items to cover. So if you need any closed captioning today, at the bottom of your screen, there's a closed caption button. If you click that, you will be provided live captioning for this event. Please also note that this session is recorded, and we'll be posting that onto our Start Here website. So if I could get the link for that in the chat, actually. And if you want to watch the session through another time, you can definitely do that at your own convenience. For this session, our students are able to answer questions relating to student life, living in the Greater Toronto Area, extracurriculars, residence, things like that. But if you have questions about admissions requirements, financial aid, scholarships, the application process, we do have a Q&A happening today at 10 a.m. with recruiters that will be able to answer those questions for you. So we're going to try our best to answer as many of your questions as we can, but we might not be able to do all of that. But we do have web chats that do happen, student web chats that do happen later on that you can definitely connect with your students furthermore after. Okay, so let's get started. So first, we're going to have our panelists introduce themselves. And if you could let us know what your name is, what campus or college or faculty you're a part of, or all three, if that's relevant, what year you're in and what you're studying, and where you're from. And we'll start with you, Jonathan.
All right, good morning, everyone. I am also joining you from Toronto, so it is very early. But my name is Jonathan. I'm currently in my 4th year doing a Spanish specialist within the Faculty of Arts and Science, and I'm a member of University College within that faculty, and I'm studying here at the St. George Campus. I'm also an international student. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, so shout out to, I saw someone who was from Jamaica, shout out to my Caribbean peeps. And as far as like why I chose to come to University of Toronto, was definitely like the amount of flexibility I had with my program. I'm very, very indecisive, so I did not know what I wanted to study kind of coming into 1st year. So being able to take that kind of more general 1st year and then specialize later on really, really appealed to me.
Thank you, Jonathan. Hazel?
Hi guys, so my name's Hazel. I'm a 2nd year student at the U of T St. George campus, or the downtown campus, and I'm in the Faculty of Applied Science and Engineering. So specifically, I'm studying chemical engineering. And my hometown is a little village in France. It's called Divaneva, and it's just across the border from like Geneva, Switzerland. So yeah, excited to chat with you guys today.
We're excited to have you here, Hazel. Toby?
Hello, everyone. My name is Toby. I am attending the University of Toronto Mississauga campus. My program is a biology for health sciences major. I'm doing a minor in biomedical communications and another minor in psychology. I'm in my 3rd year, and I'm originally from Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria, but I've lived in Canada most of my life. So I would say my hometown is like Lagos, but also Mississauga. But yeah, that's me.
Awesome. We're from the same place, actually, Toby. So, Pranay?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Pranay. I am in my 3rd year doing a international relations and political science double major with a minor in history at the St. George campus. I belong to University College, and I was born and raised in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and moved to Toronto for university.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I see that our audience already have started posting questions in the Q&A. Just to explain how this is going to work, we're going to take questions from the Q&A exclusively. So please don't type any questions into the chat. We're just going to be taking questions from the Q&A. If there's a question that you want answered, please make sure to upvote it, because we'll be so that way I will know that like this is a question that everyone really wants answered, and I'll be able to post that to our students. So before I start taking our audience's questions, I do have a question for our panelists. So when you were starting your research into universities, what factors did you consider and why did you choose U of T? And we'll start with Toby.
Okay, so there are a lot of factors. I'm very much, an overthinker, kind of a planner. So the first thing that I thought of was I actually did my high school in Ottawa. So I moved around a lot in Canada, and I did my high school in Ottawa. So I knew I wanted to be closer to my family who lived in Mississauga. And my sister actually also went to the University of Toronto, Mississauga. So I knew I wanted to be closer to home. I was also looking for somewhere where I could feel comfortable and safe. So I was looking at the atmosphere and the campus, because I'm going to be spending the next 4 years there. And another thing I was looking at, where was the best university for the program that I wanted to do? So I was looking at biology, I was looking at health sciences, life sciences, nursing. And so these are all the factors that I used, that I used to decide which campus and which university to go to. And then the reason that I ended up choosing U of T was it was closer to home. Like I said, my sister went there, and I just wanted to be closer to my family, even though I did live on residence during my first year. I ended up also choosing it because University of Toronto has one of the best biology programs in Canada. And so it also has a great reputation for research, which is something that I wish to do in the future. I loved the nature aspect of the Mississauga campus when I visited during my March break in grade 11. And I just loved the atmosphere. It was still modern, but I could still walk around and see trees, and like there was a hiking trail. So I was like, hey, this is for me. It was very much enclosed and smaller. I also love the diversity aspect of University of Toronto. So I come from predominantly like white private schools. So I was really looking for like an African community, or a community where I could find people who just were kind of more like myself. And so this was something that I really looked at when choosing a university, and why I chose University of Toronto. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that answer, Toby. Pranay?
I think similar to Toby, I had a lot of factors in deciding which university I wanted to go to. I was only looking at Canadian universities, and one of the things I was looking at was the city it was in, because I knew that there's more to campus than just staying on campus constantly. I wanted to be in a lively, bustling city where I was able to just explore and have fun, but also the great thing about the St. George campus is that it's right downtown, but it feels like its own little campus, and you can cross the street and feel like you're in the city. And there's so many good things about that. Similarly, I wanted to go into research after university. So I was looking at programs in political science where I really wanted good professors, and professors that had really cool projects that they were working on. And that was really present in the political science department at the St. George campus. And I think the third thing I was looking for was community, and the ability to build and find one, not only through academic means, but also through extracurricular means. And I knew that I wanted to get involved with the community, and that meant that and U of T has so much to offer, apart from just student government, but also just joining sports clubs or cultural clubs. And I knew that wide variety would really make me feel less homesick when I was over here. I had never seen the campus before in person before attending University of Toronto, so I knew that I had to just search online for the prettiest campuses. And U of T I was waiting for U of T's offer of acceptance, and it was the last one to come in, but the first one I accepted, and I'm really excited I did. No regrets so far, so it's all good.
I'm glad to hear that you have no regrets. Hazel?
Yeah, so I think when I was like thinking about applying to universities and which ones I liked best, definitely the two most important factors for me were quality of education and then location. And those kind of rhyme. And so in terms of quality of education, I definitely wanted something that would challenge me and push me, but which also had a lot of opportunities and like ways that I could kind of explore my field, because especially in chemical engineering, I definitely didn't and still don't know if I know exactly what a chemical engineer is. But through U of T, you can really you can just get a really great sense of all the different pathways that you can take. So that's been super exciting. And then I also wanted to be, so Pranay mentioned location as well. And like, definitely I wanted to be somewhere where I would be like excited to live. And I think that, so U of T and the city of Toronto, I was lucky enough to be able to visit in person and just thought that the atmosphere was incredible. And so U of T, it ticked both of those boxes for me.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Hazel. Jonathan?
Yeah, so for me, I think I might be in the minority in the group in terms of like, I did not do too much research into my universities prior to applying. I think for University of Toronto, some of the factors that I was considering was like Hazel, like the location. I think coming from like a very, very small country, the thought of living in such an iconic city such as Toronto, such a large city, was just so appealing to me. And then also it just came down to like reputation. Like, you know, so many of my friends, my family members had like raved about U of T. Obviously, it's like the #1 university in Canada. So I think those were like two main factors. I think actually coming to the university and spending my first few months there, I fell in love with the campus like even more. I think one of the biggest things for me was, like Toby mentioned, like the amount of diversity that we have at the University of Toronto. Like you really are able to see yourself represented in many communities or any community here. So that was some of my favorite factors here for sure.
Thank you. So we have a question from Kashish, and it's actually quite related to what we were just talking about. And it's, what is something you wish you knew as a student applying to U of T? So maybe Toby, you could start us off with this.
Okay, so even though I did all the research I thought I did, so I didn't fully understand POST, which is program of study. So I didn't really understand that that's something that you have to like declare at the end of your first year, until like the beginning of my first year is when I realized. So I was like, oh, because I thought biology for health sciences is what I applied for. So I'm like, oh, that's my program. But no, that's just the major. So I need to find like another major, or I need to find 2 minors. So I started, that's why it kind of worked to my benefit at the end of the day, because it gave me a chance to explore. So during my first year, I took courses that I didn't think I was going to take. I took education studies, I took psychology, apart from my normal biology and chemistry, and I took sociology. I just kind of looked at different things. I'm like, do I want to do a minor in chemistry? Do I want to do it in sociology? Like, do I want to stay and do it? So at the end of the day, you know, I decided on, like I said before, the biology for health sciences major, and then I did the biomedical communications minor. I didn't even know that existed. It was through a biology professor who told me about it, and she was like, oh, I think this would be great for you because it kind of explores my artistic side. So there was that, and then I said, okay, I love psych, so that's another thing I want to do. So that was like my minor. So at the end of the day, not knowing, it ended up working to my benefit because I kind of got to explore it and then choose what I wanted. But yeah, that's one of the things that I wasn't aware of until after I did more research.
Awesome, thank you. Jonathan?
Yeah, so I want to say 2 things. So first of all, very related to Toby's point, is I didn't realize how easily or how supported you are in actually switching your program. So I started off in statistics, funnily enough, and now I'm in Spanish specialist. And I just had so much like support and resources available to me to help make that transition. And I think it's very intimidating when you're kind of coming out of high school because you feel like I need to know what I'm going to do with the rest of my life now, and you don't. And you have the opportunity to kind of try things out and change if you want to. And the second thing is I didn't know how much of my university experience and how much like what I value from my university experience would be outside of the classroom. So like kind of the experiences that I took like unrelated to school. So for example, I'm being involved in my residence council, you know, becoming a residence don, being able to provide support to other students, like becoming a tour guide, you know, these things, these experiences are so meaningful and have like awarded me so many different opportunities and like will do so in the future as well. So yeah, I was really surprised by how valuable those experiences were.
Awesome. Thank you, Jonathan. Hazel?
Yeah, so I'm not really sure how to answer this question, but I think I'll go with a little bit into the application process. Once I had already gotten my offer, I basically thought I was going to take a gap year. And so this was during just as COVID was starting. And so I was still hopeful. I had requested a deferral from U of T, and I was still hopeful I'd get to take a gap year. And so because of that, I didn't do any of the like further things that you need to do, like sign up for residence, because residence on campus is basically guaranteed for all first year students. But I was pretty sure and the deadline was like the end of March to sign up for this. But I was like, COVID, like I'll still be able to do my plans, like travel, work, this should be fine. But then all of my plans fell through. And so I was like, okay, that's okay. I'll just go to U of T. I'll start university a year early. U of T was great about that. They let me like rescind or take back my deferral request. But then I didn't have residence because I missed that deadline. So I would say I wish I knew before to keep an open mind, like your plans might change. And it's always nice to have like things to fall back on in terms of like, maybe I ended up deciding to start first year rather than taking a gap year. So yeah, kind of a indirect answer, but.
Thank you. I'm glad that it worked out in the end. Pranay?
Yeah, I think similar to Jonathan, you don't have to plan out your entire degree before you step on campus. And I think for me, I was like, no, I have to plan out which course I'm taking in my third year in the winter semester, to only find out that some of the courses don't get offered, or they get changed around, or they get better. And the thing is that you don't have to be set on what you want to become. And it's really good that if you are, but for students like myself who are like, I don't really know what I want to do first year and second year and third year, it's all about like figuring out what majors and what minors you want to figure out. And the flexibility allowed at U of T is it's so good when it comes to letting you decide, picking courses that you don't usually take, and then being like, hey, I actually like this and I think I might pursue this. So you don't have to figure it out all before you come to university. That's what university is for.
I completely agree. So we have another question, and it's, is the workload a lot and is it stressful? So Pranay, we'll actually start with you again this time.
Sure. That's a great question. I think it differs from student to student, also program to program. In my courses, there's a lot of reading, and then there's a lot of prep time before lectures. I would say that the workload is, at times when it's around assignment season, it can get a bit stressful, but there are definitely resources available to help you manage that. I remember there was 1 week, and also you can talk to your professors about it. I remember that there was 1 week where I had 3 assignments from 3 different classes due on the same day, and I asked one of the professors whether I could get an extension on it, and she said no problem, because 3 assignments due on the same day that were worth 30% of my mark each. I did not know how I did that, but she said, no worries, you can have an extra week. The thing is that the professors and oftentimes the course instructors are understanding, and there's abilities to cope and manage with your workload. So yes, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes it is stressful, but there are definitely ways with coping with that. And at the end of the day, if you enjoy the work that you're doing, it's really worth it at the end of the day. So yeah.
Thank you. Hazel?
Yeah, so definitely I feel like there is a workload. But I think that managing your time becomes really important. But also, like Pranay said, reaching out and like asking for help, and I don't even mean like talking to the university, talking to your professor, like asking a friend for help, like makes that workload like so much better. I don't know if I could have done it without my friends' help, like, because you're encouraged to work together with your friends on problem sets and like form study groups and stuff. And so I really think that just can make all of the difference. So yes, there's a workload, but there's also so many ways that you can work together to tackle problems that just make it that much more fun as well.
Thank you. And I like the point that you brought up about working with other students, because that's also relevant to our next question, which is U of T competitive amongst students? So we'll start with Toby on this.
So I would say that's what I assumed before coming to University of Toronto. So I would say throw away all those assumptions. Coming to the Mississauga campus, I found that the atmosphere, and I'm sure on all the other campuses too, was very much home to me. Because it's also like a smaller one, I know that like it felt like a bigger high school. That's how I sometimes describe it. And a lot of people, we're all trying to, we're all first year students. We're all trying to do our best, and we're all here to like help each other if we need to. Finding your friends, like good friends who will help you, who will support you, kind of like what Hazel said, when like, times are stressful is very important. There's so many resources to help you, like aside from just, your peers and your professors and TAs, there's the Academic Skills Center. There will be like, I remember my first year, there was like a calculus room where we would go in and there'd be TAs and upper year students, and they would help us with our calculus homework. There was the psych room. There was like, psych TAs would help you like come up with like, you would come up with your idea for your essay, and they would look through it and like give you feedback. So I feel like there's just a lot of resources that are there for you. So it's up to you to go and get them and for you to pursue them. I would say at the end of the day, it is, a great university with a great reputation. So, you just have to figure out, okay, what do I want out of my experience, and just go for it. Everything's there for you. So, you just have to take it. That's my advice. But I think there's a great community here to help you. So I wouldn't call it competitive. I would just say that, you just have to go and get what you need. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a really great way to put that. Our next question is from Max. And Max is wondering, how accurate would you say the public image of U of T is? So is it really hard to get used to? Are you able to make friends? Things like that. And we'll go to Jonathan for this.
Yeah, I think a lot of the times, we hear about university just generally, but particularly University of Toronto, we're hearing about it from our friends, parents, people who have gone there, Reddits, the cursed Reddits. So we're getting like a lot of different kind of perceptions of what university life is like. I will say, first of all, university experience and how everybody kind of, goes through those 4 years, it's so different for everyone. So it's kind of hard to say if, this is accurate, or this is exactly what you'll experience, or this is exactly what you won't experience. I will say we can definitely kind of do a lot of myth busting in terms of like, for example, kind of just feeling like a number at the university. I think that's kind of a very popular kind of myth we hear a lot, that it's such a huge university. There's not lots of opportunities to like really feel like a part of it or really find community. That's definitely not the case at all. I think a great thing that University of Toronto does is that they take this huge university and they kind of divide into such small sectors, right? So you have the 3 separate campuses. At each campus, you have separate faculties. Within each faculty, you have those kind of smaller communities like the college system in the Faculty of Arts and Science. So there's just so many different ways that you can kind of find those smaller communities. So as far as like feeling like a number, that's certainly a definitive like myth that we can bust. And then I think we also kind of talk about like the stress aspect. I think at any university, pursuing a higher level of education, you are going to experience a certain degree of stress, similar to what you would experience like in high school, like you're going to experience stress. And I really, really like what Pranay and Toby kind of talked about in terms of like the ways of dealing with those stresses that you might encounter. So whether it be, consulting an academic resource, or like talking to your professor if it's like work related, or even just reaching out to like mental health supports. I think that's something that we've seen like such a great improvement in, at least I have in like my last 4 years of being here. So I think the university does a really, really good job in terms of like approaching these kind of concerns that students have, because it's very common. It's common to be like, oh yeah, I'm worried about my academics. I'm worried about my mental health. I want to succeed and do well here. And the university is like, we hear you. We have resources here for you. Please take them. So yeah.
The please take them is the energy, I think, for all the resources that you see. So Hazel, we have a question specific to you. So Jasmine is wondering if you can explain engineering in detail, because they're interested in engineering science.
Yeah, sure. I will do my best. So you said you're interested in engineering science, but essentially in the Faculty of Applied Science and Engineering, so you can either start, I'll just speak about engineering generally, because if you don't know, I remember when I was applying, I could not really understand the distinction between all of the different engineering programs. And I don't know if that's the case for you guys, but those of you who are considering engineering, but essentially, so as well as you can go, there are the core 8 engineering programs. So like I'm in chemical, for example, like mechanical, electrical and computer engineering, industrial, all of these. But as well, if you're as a first year, you don't know which engineering you want to go into, you can go into something called track 1, which is kind of like a tester program. You do all of your basic like engineering classes, like the kind of standard ones to get everyone that all first years do to like make sure everyone's on the same level from high school. But you also get to have sort of like seminar sessions where you can hear about the different engineerings, like the different streams, and just learn more about which one you want to then pick for second year, where you then start taking your courses, which are more specific to your stream. So then now as a second year in chemical engineering, I'm only with chemical engineers, which is super nice because you really get to know your classmates and you all have the same lectures. You just follow people to the next building. So that's really nice. And then so EngSci is not part of this like core 8 engineering program. And so in EngSci, there are different like, I think it's after second year, you then get to specialize in like the physics stream of EngSci or like biomedical or energy. I think it's energy systems. So yeah, essentially in your engineering degree, you get to really you can really customize it to what you want. There's a lot of minors available. For example, I think I want to do the environmental engineering minor, which I can start picking electives for next year, but it really varies between the different streams. So I would suggest taking a look at the website, the like U of T engineering website, and you can get a sense for those. I don't know if you want to know about the application process. Like I think at least I don't know if it was different for EngSci, but for me, I had to submit like a video like portfolio, answers some questions like that, which was really nerve-wracking, but it went well. Like you'll see that it's not too bad. Yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Thank you, Hazel. That was very comprehensive. Ashke is wondering what a typical week looks like in terms of lectures, classrooms, study time, and leisure time. So we'll go to Pranay on this.
Sure, that's a great question. So this year I'm doing a reduced course load. I'm doing 3 courses this semester. So I've classed 3 days of the week, and it's a very comfortable, comfortable workload, and also in terms of days of the week. Sorry, it's early. In terms of days of the week, I really like that I made that clear decision early on in my in first year that I will try to at least keep one of my days on the weekends free. So usually I would either keep Saturday or Sunday free, where I do nothing but decompress from the week that has been. So if weekdays are just lectures and working on assignments, and in the evenings usually you have clubs activities. Usually like Saturdays are for socials for clubs, so in terms of like weekdays for class and weekends for like exploring the city, going for socials, whether that's in residence or part of clubs, like extracurricular clubs, or just having your own time, it depends on how you are like day to day in terms of whether you're a morning or night person. But I found that on this topic, scheduling and managing your time is a really essential key that you don't have to necessarily perfect in your first year at university, and something I still am working on. But you'll find that as you move up, or as you go further into your programs, your schedules will differ and you can adapt to that. And the whole point of it is being flexible and accepting with that change, and understanding that some weeks closer to exam season, some weeks during midterms, when assignments are heavier, when you have those exams, that there will be more, you'll have to devote more time and more hours to that. But the good side of it is that the off weeks are where you get to breathe a little more and have fun a little more. But yeah.
Thank you. And I completely agree. When I was a student, I made sure I never had any class before 12 p.m. That's the kind of person I am. So we've got a question from Hannah, and they're wondering what are the biggest differences between the different campuses. So we'll start with Toby on this.
So with the biggest differences, I would say with the St. George campus, it's bigger, like it's the biggest out of the three in terms of just the amount of students that go there and attend there. That's why, you know, they have their colleges just to kind of make it smaller and like bring it to smaller sections. Also, again, the atmosphere, Jonathan and Pranay and Hazel, they all mentioned how like, you know, they like thought of it like, you know, Toronto, the big city, and, you know, it's that more of it's like a city like atmosphere, right? So the campus is more enclosed into the city and kind of like that. And then there's my campus is just in Mississauga, just you know, still close to Toronto. We actually have a shuttle that goes there for free for all students. And my campus is more enclosed. So like when you come in, like that's you're in the campus. Like you know, you're gonna know when you leave. Like it's just that campus in that area. And so it's smaller amount of students. Like I said, again, more of a nature aspect, but very modern buildings. We've had a lot of renovations and things like that. For the Scarborough campus, I can't speak too much on it just because I haven't been. But again, it's also more like Mississauga, where it's smaller in student size, but I know it has a big campus and like again, very modern and very new, and a lot of renovations going on there. And like I said, like before, the three different campuses have like different programs and similar programs as well. I know engineering is only offered at University of Toronto St. George campus. I know Scarborough is known for more like co-op opportunities. And so, yeah, that's kind of like the main big differences that I've noticed.
Thank you for that. So our next question is from Dania, and they're wondering, did you like your college dorm, and what was the best part and the worst part of it? And we'll start with Jonathan on this.
So yes, I loved living in residence, which is why I've done it for all 4 years. You gotta love it to come back each and every year. I think the best thing about it definitely would be the community. I think a lot of people kind of mentioned that, like, you know, a great thing about University of Toronto is that there are so many different communities and so many different opportunities to really make friends and kind of build those like lifelong friends. And for me personally, it was through residence. So like coming into first year, being an international student, not knowing anyone, I love that there were just like I cannot even describe to you an abundance of opportunities to just get to know other people. And I was able to make friends that like I can see being in my life for the rest of my life. So I think that's definitely the greatest part about it. I don't know if it's necessarily the worst part about residence, but I think sometimes when you do live in residence, you know, you can kind of live in this like bubble, right? Where you kind of just exist in the residence space. So, you know, a lot of your friends are in residence, you know, you kind of spend a lot of time in your room, or you spend a lot of time, you know, just like in that space. And so sometimes I've had to find myself like kind of making that like purpose, like intentional kind of like, okay, I need to leave my room now. I need to like explore the city a bit more. I need to like explore the other like the other colleges and meet other people from outside of this like little bubble. So it's not necessarily a negative part of the residence experience, but something that you kind of have to be conscious of, or like that you can be conscious of if you do want to find community, you know, elsewhere.
Thank you. Toby, if you would like to answer this question as well, because I know you were on residence and then were off campus and are now back on residence as a Don.
Yes. So I lived on residence in my first year. I actually joined a life science LLC. So that's a living learning community. So that means the people on my floor, well, one side of my floor were in my program, and we were part of this group, and we had a peer academic leader. She would create workshops for us, academic workshops to help us improve and teach us different skills. And we would do field trips with some of our like first year professors, like my biology professor. We went to an aquarium together. So that was like one of the best experiences that I had in my first year from living on residence, because like, you know, when you're in a class with like 500 students, like, you know, sometimes you're too nervous to like raise up your hand and ask a question, or too nervous to go to office hours. So having that opportunity to meet my professors outside of the classroom, or even meet like master students or graduate students who are kind of doing what I want to do, was a great opportunity for me. So I would say that that was the best part of the experience. The worst part of it, I wouldn't say there's like a like horrible part of it, like kind of like Jonathan said, but like something to be conscious of. It's kind of the opposite of what he said. He was more in his room. I was more out of my room, so I'm like very social and outgoing and like always doing something. So I think I just had to be conscious, like, okay, you know, I need to also take time for myself. Like, you know, it's not always like, you know, you can hang out with your friends and everything, but just make sure you know like that line where it's like, okay, I need to like focus, like, you know, I'm here for a reason. And also even with that, you're trying not to burn out. So you have to take time for yourself, but not too much time. You know, you also want to make sure you're focusing on the task at hand. But yeah, residence was definitely a great experience. Like Oreo said, like I came back again because I loved it so much. So I'm a residence Dawn this year, and I found that actually a lot of people in my first year LLC, the Living Learning Community, are actually like working as resident student staff. So like Dawns or peer academic leaders or all sorts of things this year and even last year as well. So I'm just helping first year students like you guys who are coming in soon, and helping them with their kind of being like their upper year friend or buddy that can help them with anything that they need and assisting them during their transition from high school to university. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. So our next question is from Nania. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And they're wondering, what is the LGBTQIA community like at U of T? So who would like to take this one? Yeah, go ahead, Jonathan.
I'm happy to speak on this. So I found that I guess I'll just shorten it to the queer community at the University of Toronto is very, very vibrant. I think specifically at the St. George campus, again, like the city really truly does run through the campus. So you're really kind of seeing like the atmosphere and the vibe of the city being reflected specifically at U of T. So I know of like specifically two organizations that exist at the university. So there's LGBT Outs. So they like specifically run events and, you know, offer services and support to LGBT students. And then there's also the Sexual and Gender Diversity Office, and they're very, very similar. I know one event that they have coming up is Queer Orientation. So I attended that in my first year, and I intend to go again, even now, like virtually. And it's just a great opportunity to kind of expose yourself to like a number of different people. I think the one thing I will say is like, you do really have to kind of seek out those opportunities, right? Like they are there for you, but it's something that you have to, and I think that's kind of generally in university, like you have to go, you know, you have to like take the initiative to like go to that event, right? Like take a friend with you and like go to it, and you never know what will come out of it. But I found that, yeah, I just love that they kind of offer those types of opportunities for you to like have those discussions. So yeah, it's a very, very vibrant community, I would say. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to mention is that on the St. George campus, we're only like a very, very short walk away from Church Street, which is known as like the gay village of Toronto. So there's so many different like social opportunities just within that kind of like area. So, and again, it's so close to campus that it really kind of like rubs off on the campus, I would say, where like a lot of students around that area like would be familiar with that community and like want to go as well. So great time.
Thank you, Jonathan. I love queer orientation. I practically lived at the studio during my time. And yeah, I definitely agree. There's a huge vibrant community. Also at UTM and at UTSC, I know they also have this Scout at UTSC. And there's also, I want to say it's called UTM Out, but I'm not completely sure. But there are definitely a variety of different clubs and communities for LGBTQ plus people at all three of our campuses. So our next question is, how is club life in COVID, and how do you manage your time right now or normally? So basically, how has been extracurriculars during COVID, and how do you manage your time? So let's go to Hazel on this.
Sure, yeah. So I think, yeah, well, I joined U of T during COVID. So I had all of last year online, and so this has kind of been, I'm like now 1 week into my first like in-person experience at U of T. So I definitely think that going in, the whole online thing kind of shook me a little. Like I wasn't too sure, like my high school, the last couple of months have been online, but I wasn't really used to like using Zoom or like meeting new people that way. So I didn't actually join any clubs in first semester. So I just focused on my studies. I focused on getting to know the city because I'm from abroad. I did join intramural spikeball because that was running for like 3 weeks and I'd never played spikeball before. And so I was able to meet a few people through that, but then that ended up being closed because of COVID. So a lot of clubs weren't running that semester either. I think the students themselves and like the people who run the clubs were trying to figure out that transition to online too. But then in fall, I joined something called Engineers Without Borders, which was really exciting because I basically was like, no, like you need to start getting more involved. I had settled into like the pace of university. I started to understand like, yeah, I just felt more comfortable. So I felt more able to like put myself out there, like take that next step. And I think that's totally fine. Like if you don't feel comfortable to join clubs at the beginning, like you don't need to. Like I was able to really easily join in January. And then this year now I'm just starting to like apply for other organizations and clubs and sports and all that stuff. So I'm really excited. I can't really speak on the difference between the two because I haven't really experienced in-person clubs, but maybe someone else can talk about like that difference there.
Pranay, do you have something to contribute?
Sure, for sure. I was able to join a few clubs in my first year. And I think the difference that I noticed for sure that as clubs went online is that I met a lot more people online. And that's just because I think it was a bit more accessible for people to just, instead of commuting and and being on campus for an event, they could just, hop in on Zoom or whatever online web platform. So I think last year and the year last, I met a lot of people that I didn't think I would meet or didn't clubs that I didn't think I would join. And the fun thing about that is as we're moving in person now we're like able to meet those people in person. And I think my favorite comment is like, you don't look as tall as I thought you were, or like to me. And I'm like, I'm sorry to disappoint. But the good thing about it, I think it's because everyone was looking for community during COVID. And I think everyone wanted to join different opportunities, whether they were student government or cultural clubs. It was a bit more difficult for sports teams, but I knew that they had socials going on. That I think that the online platform just made it, just helped a little with the fostering of society. So, fostering a community. So in terms of that, I definitely did not expect to meet as many people as I did, but it's really one of those positives. Going into this year, I'm just like, oh my God, I know you. And then you bump into random people on campus and you're like, we were part of the same club. But that's definitely one of those things, yeah.
Thank you. One of the things I like about virtual is that I can keep my height a mystery. So in everybody's mind, I'm actually 6 feet tall. So we have a question from Francine, and it's how do you earn money as students? So we can start with Toby on this one.
Okay, so in my first year, I focused more on school, so I didn't work. I was fortunate enough to have my tuition paid by my parents, so I just focused on school during that year. But then after my first year, I'm like, okay, I want to like get my first job, like finally and everything. So I started looking at the Career Learning Network, so that's CLN. That's where you can find volunteer opportunities. You can find work study programs. So work study program is a job that is on is from the school, right? It might be off campus or on campus, but it's like from the school, you're working in a department in the school, and you are basically working about 15 hours, and they pay good and they know that you're a student. So they're making sure that, it's flexible with your academics and we're not trying to get in the way of that. So I did that, and I actually started in the summer. So because I took a couple summer courses, I work as a student ambassador at University of Toronto Mississauga. So like helping with recruitment, helping high school students, with their applications and just with all the questions that they have, and any recruitment events that we have, I'll be a part of student panels like this. So that's what I did this past summer, and I'm doing currently this year. So it's just a great way to earn money on the side because they are flexible with your work hours and everything. So that's just one of the ways to earn money. That's what I did. Yeah.
Thank you. Jonathan, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to this question. And I think the previous question had a kind of related element, which is like managing your time. So I think regardless of whether or not you choose to join a club or you're taking up a work opportunity, something that a lot of students are kind of concerned about is like, how will I be able to balance my time and do both and, succeed in both? And I think as far as like some tips that I have garnered throughout my time as someone who's taken up like a lot of work opportunities, right? Like being a tour guide, like being a residence don, I think it's really important to be realistic with like your boundaries and your expectations of yourself. So like kind of understanding and like knowing when it's time to say no to certain opportunities. Maybe you can't attend that club meeting, or maybe you can't take on this like extra opportunity. So I think that's really, really helpful in terms of balancing your time, because then that you're like devoting the amount of time that like this job needs and that like you could give to the job or to the club or whatever it might be. And the next thing is that I really, really love my Google Calendar. I love being able to just like go through all my course syllabi and write down all of the dates that that there's like a test or something on. And then, for my job or for a club that I'm involved in, I'll go in and write down like all the dates that I need to be like at that job or like doing something for that club. And so you have a really, really good idea of like when you have kind of like on time and when you have a little bit of like off time for yourself. So I find like really kind of being particular about your scheduling helps a lot of times with that time management aspect. And also like scheduling in time for yourself, like Toby kind of mentioned earlier, like time just to like chill, like for that self-care, to spend time with your friends, to go off campus, things like that, I think is really, really important. So Google Calendar and knowing when to say no would definitely be my top 2 tips for whether you're like taking on a work opportunity or a club.
Agreed. My calendar really is my lifesaver. So just a reminder, we have about 15 more minutes left. We do have a lot of questions, but please make sure to upvote questions that you are interested, that you want us to answer. That way it's just, a little bit more efficient and we can get to the most popular questions soon. Okay, so we have another question, and this one will be for Hazel. How does co-op for engineering work, especially during COVID?
Yeah, this is a great question, because I definitely think that one of the reasons a lot of people choose engineering at U of T is because they have this really great like PUI, professional experience year, co-op like placement year program. And that's definitely one of the reasons that I was drawn towards it, because the idea of getting a year in industry, making money, like before I even graduate, was just so cool for me. And I do think that is one of the coolest parts about the engineering program. But this year, so essentially you start your kind of PEY co-op like preparation in as early as first year. And so what it is it's they take you on like a roadmap of how to apply and then be accepted for your eventual internship, which will happen after. You can do it after second year, but most people do it after third year so that they've had a little bit more experience, a little bit more time in class, all that stuff. And so far, like we've started already, like as a second year, we've started already like thinking about our resumes, thinking about things like our values and our strengths, like what sort of direction we want to take, because obviously, although you might be in a set stream of engineering, like maybe electrical, you can work in like so many different industries, like so you do need to do that research and decide, like, because you're spending a whole year there, like it would be great if you were interested in it. But then how it's worked with COVID so far is actually it's happened as normal. Just the workplaces have made adaptations for online versus in-person work, like learning or working. And then it really depends on where you're working and the company that you're working for. Because I have some friends, for example, they're working with maybe Environment Canada for the year. And so that for now is still online. And actually one of my friends is happy about that, because otherwise she'd have to move to Ottawa for the year. So there's definitely benefits about the fact that it's been online. And it's basically just gone on as normal. And all of my upper year friends are really, really excited about it. And definitely I haven't done it yet, but I would definitely recommend signing up for it if you come for engineering here.
Awesome. Thank you, Hazel. So we do have a couple questions about the colleges. So Jonathan, I'm going to post this one to you. So if you could give us a breakdown of what the colleges are, and then also the specific question about if you can take any courses at any U of T college, or if just the one that you're associated with.
Yes, this is a great question. So at the St. George campus, we have 5 direct entry faculties. So those are faculties you can come into directly coming out of high school. The largest of those faculties is the Faculty of Arts and Science. So each year we house around 27,000 students. So that's a lot of students, especially in comparison to the other faculties. For example, kinesiology is only around 250 students. So essentially the university was like, how can we provide the same sort of intimate student experience for someone in this huge, huge faculty as, for someone in a small faculty? And the answer to that was the college system. So the college system essentially takes this huge 27,000 group of people and divides them into 7 smaller groups. And each of these 7 smaller groups is known as a college. So a college is essentially like your home away from home. It's just like a smaller kind of hub for you. That's where you'll find like a lot of your community, a lot of the resources available to you will be specific to your college. If you want to get involved in, for example, intramural sports, student government, that might be tied to your college as well. Whether or not you live on campus or not, you still will be a member of the college if you belong to the Faculty of Arts and Science. And again, it's just a way to kind of make this huge, huge faculty not quite as big, to like make a smaller community within it so that you have more access to those resources and it's a bit more like intimate student experience. And as far as like taking courses from one college to another, so none of the colleges are academic in any sense, which means that you could belong to any program and be a member of any college. In fact, all of the colleges have a really, really good mix of students from across all of the like different programs within the Faculty of Arts and Science. I do know that certain colleges are known for offering certain courses. So for example, University College is known for offering the Sexual Diversity Studies program. But anyone from any college could take a course within that department, even though it is offered by a specific college. So anyone can take a course from any college because they're not academic and they're not like related to any type of program or anything like that.
Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, when I was a student, I was an Innis College student, but I did equity studies, which was based at New College, and also SDS, Sexual Diversity, which was at UC. So you can see you're definitely going to be able to take courses at any college that you want. So we have another question, which is, what should we do if we're a grade 12 student and are unsure about what we want to do in university? So Toby, why don't you start us off with this?
Okay, so if I was a grade 12 student and I was unsure about university and like what exactly I wanted to do, first of all, I would just look at my interests, right? I would look at things that I'm interested in because that's going to be a big factor in your decision, and also the motivation to like do well and the motivation to study. You're going to need that. So it needs to be something, you love or something that you're very interested in. So I would look at my interest. I would look at, things that I excelled at in high school, my values, my strengths, my weaknesses. That's what I would first analyze. And then that's why, University of Toronto would be a great school for somebody like that, because you have your first year to kind of like explore and look at what do you want to do, right? And even if you decide, you can even decide after your first year. It doesn't have to be at the end of your first year. I decided I wanted to do 2 majors at the end of my first year, and then it wasn't until the end of my second year that I switched it to 2 minors. So, you have time, there's no rush. Come into university, kind of look at, okay, well, I'm interested in this, but I'm not so sure. Well, then take, your different classes. There's electives that you have to take anyways. So distribution requirements and other fields. So whether it's humanities, science, and social sciences. So you're going to have to take a course in each of those anyways, right? So look at different things that you might be interested in, and then go from there, and then take your time in deciding. But even if you decide, you can always still change your mind. There's no limit to how many times you can change your program. Like Jonathan said, he started in statistics and ended up in Spanish. I took education studies. Like, I was interested in that. I thought maybe I'm going to do a major in that, a minor in that. So there's different things. There's so many programs across all 3 different campuses. You can take courses at a different program. I've taken a course at St. George, and I'm in Mississauga. So just be open-minded, explore what do I really want, what am I really interested in, you know, because at the end of the day, you're going to be taking those tests, you're going to be studying, not whoever else is kind of whispering in your ear to, you know, take this course or, you know, do this program. So I would just focus on, you know, your interests and your strengths.
That's very well put. And I completely agree. You don't need to know all the answers now. I don't think anybody has all the answers at any point in their life. So yeah. So Christopher is asking, do you have to choose a major or a program when you apply or before joining U of T, or can you choose after your first year? Pranay, we'll go to you on this.
Sure. So for the Faculty of Arts and Science, you can choose. You have to choose a program area. So I believe there are 6 program areas that you choose from. So when I came to university, I was part of social sciences because I knew I wanted to go into political science. But there is no, like, you don't have to stick to the program area at the major and the minor that you intended to do if something else suits your fancy. And the thing is that a lot of, I think personally, I came into university thinking that if I was going to commit to poli-sci, I had to commit to it for the next 4 years. And that is not true at all. I had not heard of the international relations program. And then someone suggested it and said, it's a baby between economics and geography and history and poli-sci. And I went, oh my God, I want that. So you can definitely, you have the ability to choose your programs at the end of the first year. But going into your second and third and fourth year, you can definitely switch it around. And there are opportunities to get help with that. Like the registrars and academic advisors are there for you. And the offices and the departments they have undergraduate advisors of their own. If you have any questions about, I really like the courses in this program, but I'm really not sure if the program is my fit. And they're there to answer those questions for you. So you don't have to have it all decided in your first year. If you do, that's amazing and wonderful. But if you needed a bit more time like I did, there's definitely, as Toby said, it's no rush. Like, you don't have to rush into it. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be taking these courses and you don't want to take courses that you don't want to do, right? Because university is all about finding what you like and really honing those skills and values around it. But yeah.
Thank you so much. So this is most likely going to be our last question from the audience, just because we have about 5 minutes left. So Roy is wondering, what would you say sets U of T apart from other universities? And Hazel, why don't we go to you on this one?
Yeah, so I think for this one, I'd like to echo a sentiment that was kind of shared at the beginning, which is its diversity. So I think that U of T, and also I will say the city of Toronto, is like super diverse. And that is not something that you find everywhere, I don't think. And it's probably been one of my favorite parts, has been just meeting people from all across the world. And like, I moved around a lot as a kid, so I also don't really like associate myself with like one place. So it's just been super nice to just meet so many different people. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that answer. So just before we wrap up, I do have a final question for our panelists. And I would like you to tell us, what is one piece of advice you would have for students when choosing your university? And we can start with Jonathan.
Oh my gosh, a big question. So one piece of advice that I would have is, I think Pranay kind of touched on this. At the end of the day, you are the person that has to complete the degree. Like, you're the person that's going to have to take the tests. I think Toby also mentioned, like, take the tests, like, do the courses. You're the person that's going to end up in that career someday. So I think, you know, a great thing about university is that you're really entering into adulthood. And so you are making your own decisions. And so it's important to keep that in mind. Obviously, I know it's easier said than done, especially I know, like, my parents had a lot of, like, kind of, you know, whispering in my ear, like, you should do this, we want you to do this, we want you to do this. But I think it's really, really important to recognize that, like, it's your life and it's your career at the end of the day. And so to really take, like, your interests and your likes and what you want to do as, like, the main priority, kind of over other people. And again, it's easier said than done, but there's definitely a lot of support at the university to, like, kind of help you navigate making your own decisions. So that would definitely be my biggest advice for sure.
Thank you so much. That's solid advice. Pranay?
Yeah, I think university is just more than academics. At the end of the day, academics just play a role in it, but you're going to be on this campus, or you're going to be part of the university. So look at the values and look at the community that you can build and the ways to get involved. And if you find a fit with that, and then I think choose your university not solely based on academics, but the fact that you're going to be living and thriving there, and the fact that you want to get involved. There's more things outside of academics, or the different supports available. So looking at just more than just academics and looking at the whole picture definitely can help you determine what universities fit with your own values and who you are as a person, and who you want to be. So that would be my piece of advice.
Thank you. Toby?
So yeah, Jonathan took mine. I'm just joking. So yeah, again, I was gonna say, like, there were a lot of relatives and family in my ear whispering, like, do this, do that, do this. You're gonna be the one doing the test and studying. You need to be motivated. So, look for something that you want to do at the end of the day. And that, like we mentioned again, you can always change your program. But aside from that, kind of touching on what Pranay said, there are a lot of opportunities outside of academics. You do not want to let the 4 years pass by and you're like, I wish I did this. There's study abroad for a semester, or there is like even going to another Canadian university for a semester. There's clubs, there's academic societies. Like right now I'm like co-president of ASA, like African Students Association. And one thing I noticed is like one door will open another door. So like when I volunteered at the end of my first year for like an initiative that was going on at UTM, like then my upper year friend is like, hey, there's a work study program for student ambassadors. You should sign up. I think you'd be great. And then I did that in my summer. And then the student ambassador program told me about, being a tri-campus representative for something like this. And that's how I came here. And, so I feel like there's just one thing after another. Like even the initiative that I did, I was able to meet a biology professor who helped me reach out to other professors for research. So just put yourself out there. Like you never know where it's going to lead you. So don't stay in that little bubble. Try to, explore and come out of your comfort zone, and you'll be surprised by all of the benefits and rewards that you get out of it. So that's my advice.
Thank you so much for that. Hazel?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with what everyone has said. And I think I would just say, when picking your university, go with your gut. And I will say that where you go to university is not the be all end all. So go where you think you'll be happiest, and also don't worry too much about it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to all of our student panelists. I really like hearing our students talk, just because you all are very impressive and very cool. And it's just wonderful to hear all of your experiences.